Good evening, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're safe and healthy and ready to do a little drawing on a Friday evening. I'm Merrick Bennett, and this is Merrick Bennett's Comics Workshop. I've got a pencil, I've got a blank page, and I've got a project actually I want to show you. So I'm going to switch over to my desk cam here. We'll switch all the way over, and I'll show you what I've been working on today. I saved the funnest page to draw with you this evening. So I'm doing pages from my Civil War Diary of Freeman Colby series, volume 1 and 2 here, and I'm working on volume 3 today. So the challenge today is we're drawing a scene. Well, here's the scene we're drawing, and you can see why I like to draw these out in comics, because there's a lot of stories in a book like this, The Regimental History of the 39th Regiment, Massachusetts Volunteers in the Civil War. There's a lot of stories in here, but I like to draw them out and get a sense of what they look like. So today, I'm going to take a blank sheet of paper and we'll try out a page. We'll pencil it, and if we like what we have, I'll bring in my inking pen and we'll ink it and finalize it. So you'll notice, see these faint lines you can see on the page? I actually have a 12 by 12 grid that I overlay each page on, and I can trace out my panels. So these blue lines show you the quarters of the page height. The red lines show you the thirds, right? Because 12 can be divided into 3 and 4. So I did a little fraction math. And the page I want to work on today, I'll tell you the story in a moment. Let's set up the page. So I'm going to trace along my lines. Let's go like 2/3 of the way down. We can see that red line is the third down there. So I'll stop right on that. We'll go across here. Penciling, I can be kind of loose and not sloppy, but it doesn't have to be perfect. I'll just get the lines about where I want them. And we'll have a big panel on this page. All right, so that'll be one big panel. And underneath it, I want to put 2 smaller panels. And it's kind of nice having this grid like this because it gives it a certain regularity. I'm going to the half line, halfway across, and we'll put 2 panels here. Gives you a certain regularity in these rectangular panels. And then because that regularity kind of shows you a pattern, you know, we have thirds and then the final third in halves, your brain kind of relaxes and can focus on the story inside those panels. Now, the way this is going to look ultimately is it'll look like any of these other pages in the series. It'll look different because it's its own story, but you can see how I'm using those fractions to give a regularity to and sometimes break a regularity with a bigger panel or something. So we're kind of doing that here. Big panel followed by 2 little panels. So the story is, this is in the middle of the Battle of the Wilderness. Oh, hold on. I just got these cards from the printer. Check it out. Postcards of our Battle of the Wilderness live draw that we did. We inked this a couple weeks ago, and then we colored it and we scanned it in and processed it digitally. So I'm sending these out to patrons actually. Oh, and the website, I should give you the website. MerrickBennett.com, patreon.com/MerrickBennett if you want to become a patron and get fun stuff in the mail like postcards. All right, so the story is they're in the middle of the Battle of the Wilderness. They can't see a thing in the middle of this forest, so they actually cut down a bunch of trees and made a breastworks, a big wall of logs that you can see in this panel. They go to sleep, and as they're sleeping, a great racket is heard. And it's not far off, and somebody says, "Run, the whole rebel army is upon us." And this loud crowd is crashing down the space behind the breastworks. This is what we get to draw today. And at the last moment, wait, that's not rebels, it's boom. And that's what we'll show them here. So it's kind of a surprise what it is. It's actually not the rebel army attacking them. They think it is at first, but it is not. So what I'm thinking, now I'm rethinking this now that I read it through with you. It is over here. It's actually, should I tell you what it is? Spoiler alert. It's a stampede of cattle who somehow got loose from the army cooking pens and are crashing down this space behind the breastworks, stampeding over the sleeping soldiers. So that's what we have to draw here. As I'm talking about it, though, I'm thinking, what if we had an extra? I'm going to turn this over. What if we showed the cattle last? I was going to show the cattle. My first plan was show the cattle stampeding and then show the reactions of the men. They have some colorful reactions. But now I'm thinking, what if we took a moment? That's not Rebels It's, and we take a moment to show that dust cloud getting bigger and bigger, and then the cattle hit. I might do that, in which case I'm not going to turn my clipboard over. I'm going to turn the page around. Let's try that. I like this phase of penciling because anything could happen. And you could flip the page on its head and try something different. And our panels will still give us that regularity. So here's what I would like to try with you. Let's try drawing that trench with a little dust cloud, this little dust cloud in the distance, like we're looking down at perspective-wise, then the dust cloud bigger. And then here we'll just fill this panel with cattle stampeding over sleeping Civil War soldiers. And I know what you're thinking. What does that look like? All right, we got to figure that out. So I went looking. I'm going to zip back up here to my StreamYard and check and make sure we're doing okay. All right. So I went looking, actually. Let me close this down and open up a little folder here. I went looking for Civil War images of this. We'll come to that one in a moment. And here's a photograph I found. You know me, I like to go when I'm drawing these historical comics that are all based on the diaries and letters of people who lived through this. I like to do a lot of research with the period photos. So here's an 1864 photo of the breastworks on the North Anna River. So these are, I believe, Union breastworks. And they're looking down along the river. You can see they've kind of thrown them together. They've jammed stakes in the ground and put boards along the stakes and then just backfilled rocks and earth. Anything that would stop a bullet or a small cannonball, anything that would stop the danger coming at them. And then they can hide down in that trench, and there are guys sleeping in there. So that's what they looked like when they curled up and slept on their knapsacks, slept on their arms, as they say. And some guys sitting on the edge, and they put up a sun shield. Well, we won't have that in the middle of the night. That's a much more put together trench than the Brock Road trenches. In the wilderness, they were just thrown together quickly. But we can use that. Actually, let me show you the other picture I found. This is a drawing by Alfred Woad, and he was on site and he saw these things. And this is called Rebel Advance Through the Smoke and Seizure of a Part of the Breastworks on Brock Road. So this is a quick action sketch of the actual breastworks we're drawing in this story, right? So let's see. We're not going to have the rebels in this. We just want to look at how he quickly made the walls. He put little lines going up and down for stakes and then lines going across. And those logs look pretty secure in there. They would have earth backfilled in front of them. All right, so let's try that. So I'm going to go up here into my page. And like I said, we'll have a little dust cloud of the Stampede coming at us. We don't know it's a Stampede yet. Put some noises and exclamation marks in there. It's all excitement rumbling towards them. And then coming away from that, let's put the breastworks. They kind of come this way. And there will be like a post there and a post there, a post there. There we go. And it kind of rolls into the distance there. Now, I'm not going to draw too much. I try to draw as little as possible when I'm doing my stick figures here. So this guy's pausing. He'll say nothing there. There will be like a little pause in his speech. And here are the guys. I'm just doing like little blankets with heads sticking out. They're all asleep. They don't even know it yet. They don't even realize what's coming at them. And that's pretty much all it's going to be. And then here we'll have this cloud getting bigger. Right? And maybe he turns and oh, you never see this tough guy's eyes. Maybe he shouts, "Yeah," and puts his hands up. And maybe here we've got to have this wall in the same place. right? Roughly the same place, same pole, so you can see it staying the same. And the only thing different is the dust cloud getting louder. And maybe there's like a moo, moo in there. Maybe his scream should be down here. Yeah. There we go. That leaves us some room up here. And this will just be like blackness, ultimately, blackness. Put some coming at you lines, some noise lines. All right, that's good. So it looks like it's getting closer and closer with the wall staying the same. And then here, down here. So the next question is, what does it look like to have a stampede of cattle running through a trench over sleeping soldiers who are like jumping up and shouting and terrified and running in all directions? Well, let's see. I found another picture. Let's move along here. So we looked at our photo of the trench, and we looked at our drawing of the trench. And I also found this Winslow Homer print, which is called Foraging. So this is a print of some Union soldiers who are going looking for food on southern farms, and they're taking feed for their horses. And then they thought they would take this cow to feed to the regiment, but the cow turned and ran into the cabbage patch. So it's kind of a little story in an image. But that gives me an idea. So I'm going to do a stick figure cow right in the center, and see how I can find the center very quickly with this grid in the background. Remember my 12 by 12 grid, or in this case, my 8 by 12 grid for this panel. I can find that center right there, and I can place the cow. Let's give her googly eyes. Maybe like, oh, maybe it's a cow with like a ring in her nose. We'll give her the horns like that cow and ears like Winslow Homer's cow there. And maybe, and I like how her back legs kind of kick up. Mm-hmm. And her front legs, there's her body, and her front legs kick out to either side. Yeah, that's probably as good as our cow's going to get. And we'll put a lot of dust around the stick figure cow. And we'll put a whole bunch of stick figure cows running alongside. This is like Civil War running of the bulls, only that everybody's sleeping when it starts. Can you imagine? They thought it was a rebel attack, and it turns out it was, oh, just a herd of cattle running over you in the middle of the night. Maybe they should be like tumbling. We're going to put a couple Union soldiers in here too. Maybe like 1 foot flying up here, 1 foot flying down here. Like the cattle are tumbling all over the place too. Maybe one's like jumping. Make them kind of cross-eyed and silly looking. These are cartoons, right? We want sort of, I want to be faithful to the original sources, but the way it's presented in this regimental history is it's like, can you believe this? Here's another thing on top of this battle we're fighting. In the middle of the night, the cattle stampede over us. Who let the cows out? And we're going to have like a big moo, moo, moo. And let's see. Then we're going to have like 2 lines of men coming down this way, sleeping on the ground. We'll have the wall here. We'll have like maybe Freeman Colby jumping out of the way, climbing the wall, right, to get away from them. Now, I don't know exactly how this went. They don't give you lots of specifics in the account. They just say, some in their alarm thought the whole rebel army was upon us. It proved to be a stampede of our own cattle. They came bellowing down the space between the flanks and the works and over the prostrate forms of our men. The choice language of the startled sleepers when they came to understand the situation added not a little to the tumult. So it's purposefully being told in a dry way to be humorous. So we get to watch across the panel here. We get to watch these faces go from, actually they're going in reverse order here, because the farther away from the cows, they will be sleeping with a smile. closer to the cows, they're like, what's going on? Then this one's waking up. Then this one's like screaming. And then now this one's like covering his head with his hands, right? Maybe kicking up a foot. All right, we'll do the same trick reading back this way. So it's like within the picture, maybe we'll put some, oh no, you know what? I need to leave this space here. I need to leave open. Hold on a sec. So in the picture, there's like this sense of time here, sleeping quietly, sleeping like a baby in a trench under a blanket, with a musket beside him. And here, like rudely awakened. And then here, actually under the hoof of a stampeding cow. Woo! All right, there we are. And maybe one more. The trick with stick figures here, you know what the trick is though? When I ink the stick figure, I'm not going to be able to ink much background around them because their legs are just lines. You know, you can't have those lines touching other lines or you lose the sense of the figure. So I'm going to have to be really careful inking this. Try to keep these details just right. All right, we'll do a soldier jumping out of the way here, running out of the way here, because there's no way to stop a whole stampeding herd of cows. Maybe another soldier like, oh, maybe like some legs kicking here as he gets just jumbled into the herd. Legs here. And then probably this will be black all around them. The clouds will be white. We'll put lots of noise sounds in here. We'll put some trees in the background here, but I think those will be white line trees against a black background. That's what I'm thinking. So we'll have like all black night in the corners here. And then all this black lines on white. And then here, a stampede of our own cattle. So it's like the words as the cows come at you, and you see the men waking up, you realize what this is, along with the characters. Yeah, I can't really do too many more jumbled in here. Maybe somebody like some poor guy underneath the hooves here. And they just run right over them. We may have to use one or two more panels to kind of show that action. But I think we're ready to ink. This is kind of nice. I like how this page, it feels like the wall's coming out at you when the corners are dark. Well, let's see how it looks. I'm taking the same approach with the page before. This background will be all black, probably all black around them. So it looks very dark and nighttimey. And I'll just select that and invert those pixels. So the black letters become white. The white background becomes black. It's a neat trick. All right, let's try some inking. Let me just check our ahoy, Elena. We got a comment from Elena and Lipani. Checking comments from people. And we can start inking here. Now I pencil pretty loosely, but I do that on purpose because when you look at the pages in the book, I don't want them to look too tight or too calculated or too planned out. I want them to look a little loose, as if they were drawn on the march, as if they were drawn kind of in the moment somewhat. So I keep them really simple. When you look through any one of these pages, I try to keep a lot of open space. I try to keep a lot of time and space for the reader to kind of come to their own conclusions about what the story is telling us, right? And that can, like those guys digging graves. They didn't mention what landscape they were in, so I didn't draw any landscape. And I kind of want to do that here, but I also want this stampede to totally fill up the page and come rushing at you out of the night. So, you know, we're balancing that. And I thought this would be a good page to pencil. Some of these panels I can draw without much penciling at all. But this one, working out where the cows are going to go, how the time runs across these bands of sleeping soldiers. I really need to pencil some of these things. I rarely pencil a whole page like this when I'm drawing in this style, but it's kind of nice to do that tonight. These characters, they're so simple. I designed them to be expressive, but not realistic. And I keep them really simple. So each time you draw them, you're like, oh my gosh, let's focus on the expression because there's no other detail to get lost in, right? I actually have no idea what Freeman Colby looked like. I have no idea what any of these characters looked like, except for a couple of them that had their pictures taken. But I like that sense of mystery. And I try to keep that in these stick figures. Here are the posts coming right at you. And maybe I'll go ink the other panel of them while they're fresh in my hand here. Let's see. If they were in, like you saw in that photograph from the Anna River, if we go back to that, looks like they used boards there. Now, they probably pulled down some poor farmer's house or some, traitorous Confederate supporter's house. Ideally, I guess they would have. Union soldiers would have. But here they're using logs. And it says, so I'm going to round them off a little bit like that. And we'll see how that looks on the page. We will see. Because here they didn't even have axes. They just had hatchets and knives. And in the middle of the battle, they had to cut down logs. So the logs wouldn't have been this big, but it's cartoon version. They had to cut down logs with whatever they had. And they used their bayonets as shovels. They used their tin plates. No, I'm sorry, their bayonets as pickaxes, their tin plates as shovels. And they built these breastworks over the course of an afternoon. So of course these guys are tired. Of course they're sleeping, trying to get some sleep on the cold ground behind their breastworks, thinking they're safe. That might be all I do for the inking here. And now we've got the tough guy turning and screaming, "Yeah!" Remember, all this will turn black, but I'm going to do that when I scan it in. I'll invert the pixels then. I think I'll keep the breastworks in the ground here light. There'll probably be a line where the black stops and the ground will be light and textured, just so you can easily see where the ground is and where the night background is. Now we've got a bigger dust cloud coming at us here. And you hear a couple moos in it, and you're like, what is this? Maybe they aren't rebels. Moo? Moo? Let's see. It seemed like just a crazy scene I never expected to find in the middle of this major Civil War battle. Terrifying Civil War battle. Parts of the woods around them, I was thinking of forest fires this week, of course, and parts of the woods around them caught fire as they fought. So they're fighting this battle amidst terrible forest fires in the middle of this forest where you couldn't see a thing 20 feet in front of you. And then at night it quiets down a little. Fire's still raging in the distance, but they try to get some sleep. And the cows run down the trenches on top of them. So this just seemed like one of those moments. It's not a moment that Freeman Colby writes about in his letters. He doesn't mention it. He writes a short letter after the Battle of the Wilderness to let his family know he's alive. And he mentions a couple details of things he saw in the battle, but it's been like a week or more straight of combat, and he just can't write a letter. He can't give them everything. He doesn't want to tell them everything. So I went looking for more details and found this story. So I imagine them getting up. They look down the trench. This cloud of action and noise is coming at them. Suddenly they realize what it is. They turn and run, but it's too late. And here we are in the big panel. Checking comments. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. If you're on the Facebook. I'm okay putting Freeman Colby into this scene, even though he doesn't mention it in his letter, and he is not mentioned in the telling of it, but it's the sort of thing that he would have experienced. I know he must have experienced something like this, if not this actual scene. He could have been in that trench when those cattle came down, running down the trench. So this is a story that I found. I'm going to put it alongside his letter. And if nothing else, it gives us a sense of the sorts of things he experienced and saw. And it gives us a sense of what his comrades experienced and saw, because also my Freeman Colby character here, while he's based on an actual young school teacher from New Hampshire, from my hometown here in New Hampshire, Henniker, New Hampshire, he's based on that young school teacher, but he also, he can also represent a lot of other people from a similar background who enlisted in the Union Army. All right, here we go. First cow, start at the center. This is our most Winslow Homer inspired cow. Whoops, there we go. Again, I'm not copying. Obviously, I'm not copying Winslow Homer's technique. I am copying his composition a little bit, his posing of the subject, and using that in another story. I like to work with Winslow Homer's pictures because he was there. He's like Alfred Woad. He was there, and he drew things he saw, and he purposefully only drew things he saw. Right? He didn't just imagine stuff and make it up. He drew from life, like a lot of artists of this time. So these correspondents, these special correspondents or special artists who were embedded with the Union Army, saw stuff and then quickly drew it down to send into the magazines they worked for. So Winslow Homer, I bet, saw something like this. Often it's many scenes that he combines into one. But it's from his, you can see it's from his campaign sketches. So it's an actual series of typical scenes. I noticed the enslaved guy in the background running after him. I wonder if he's, trying to get the cow back or trying to get them to take him with them back to Union lines where he could hopefully maintain his freedom one way or another. This is the segregated army, of course, the Union Army at this time. So the 39th Regiment is all these guys from Massachusetts. There was also like the Massachusetts 54th that were what were called U.S. colored troops, who were African-American soldiers. They were active at this time, but they're not on the scene with the 39th, although some U.S. colored troops regiments did arrive at the Wilderness just in time to turn the tide of a couple major points of the battle. So we may see some of them too. at some point, not on this night scene with the cattle stampede, but at some point over the next couple days. It's an amazing period in Freeman Colby's service where you have the wilderness, then you have Spotsylvania Courthouse, some of the bloodiest, most intense hand-to-hand fighting ever on this continent, and just the continued march on Richmond. For like a month or so, they're just kind of constantly in combat or marching. Unbelievable. And this is just the start of it. And they're not getting a good night's sleep tonight. All right, let's do these sleeping soldiers. Remember, this is let's give him a couple exclamation marks, and we'll put a dust cloud surrounding everybody. Better dust in those letters and some sounds. I sort of visualize these sounds and draw them as little burst marks on the page. Trying to find all the little empty spaces and show this as just like a huge dust cloud coming down, dust cloud of action. All right, I'm working my way down to those sleeping forms. Oh boy, it's chilly here. I got out my sweater, getting out my winter clothes. I've been thinking, drawing the forest fires in the wilderness this week. I'm thinking, watching the forest fires out on the West Coast and thinking of that and how, boy, this year's an election year here in the United States. And in 1864, it was an election year too. And it felt like a real cataclysmic kind of election year. I actually found a cartoon lambasting Abraham Lincoln for not being serious, for disrespecting the military and not being serious enough about military casualties on these battlefields. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. I'll post it over at the Patreon, actually. It's an 1864 election year cartoon. So you can follow these live draws and get updates and invites over at patreon.com. And if you join up there, it really helps us do more of these. I'm putting together a fall season, so we'll have some library events and I have some school visits planned. But this whole thing, this whole Freeman Colby Volume 3, just like Volume 1 and 2, it's all crowdsourced, reader-supported indie graphic novel work. So this is how it happens, just kind of, in this case, in 2020, getting together here on social media or wherever and putting this stuff together. So comments and questions and feedback are really appreciated. Let's give Freeman Colby some freak out sweat here. Quick reflex, jumping up over the wall. Remember, this will all be black in here, black in here. I'll turn those trees white. It'll be black around him to highlight him. And then this will all be black lines on white for the ground. So let's draw these sleeping soldiers and we're done. The nice thing about this style is I actually have to remind myself to stop, to not draw every wrinkle into every blanket, right? Maybe a couple, but then I stop at some point because I don't want to overdraw this. I don't know what any of these soldiers look like, so I draw them as the little blockheads. Square blockheads, Massachusetts men. Roundheads, New Hampshire men. That's my little cartoon shorthand. It's a Massachusetts regiment, so they're mostly square. Square blockheads. It's not a pejorative in cartooning. That's just a descriptive term. And let's see, put a little dust under them as they come under. Oh, and this guy is tumbling out of his blanket bed. I don't want it to look like he's getting crushed. I just want it to look like he's tumbling. But what was I saying? Oh, it's not like I'm researching photographs of Massachusetts 39th soldiers and basing each of these characters on them. No, I'm just drawing a bunch of stick figures. The story is it's a bunch of guys sleeping in a trench with cows running over them. Good story. So as long as you see that, I am happy. The only recognizable one right now needs to be Freeman Colby, because I want you to, actually, this is key too. You notice how he's climbing left to right, jumping out of the page into the next page. It makes you want to turn, makes you, to find out if he gets away, you've got to turn the page. So he's kind of guiding the reader there. And he's the central character because I have the most letters and diary entries from him. So that's good. The reader should feel like they want to follow Freeman Colby every page here. Keep reading with him. Keep turning the page. So that's kind of cool that he jumps off to the right into the next page, whereas this guy is jumping for safety left. So you get a sense that they're scattering. But we're definitely reading with Freeman Colby. Oh, that worked out. Sometimes you draw this stuff and you're like, that needs to go the other way. But fortunately, that one works, I think. Never really know till I stop and step back and maybe look at it tomorrow and decide if this page works. Also, I'll put this alongside the other pages that I drew today, right? And I will, and I'll read them all together. And sometimes you get through to the 5th page and you're like, oh no, it can't be like that. It has to be a different way. I'm doing that now with earlier pages in this story. I'm about 150 pages in. And I'm at the point where I'm going back and redrawing a couple of those earlier pages because of things I've realized as I drew these later pages. ... And this is big, unbelieving writing, all caps. A stampede of our own cattle. And I like, as you flip through the book, you see some pages. Hold on a sec. Let me pull a book out. As you flip through one of these books, you'll see some pages have a lot of small panels. Others, oh, there he is sleeping alongside the road with the camp in the distance. Others, those big panels jump out and grab you. Here, no big panel grabs you. They're all pretty small. And then, oh, he left the tent. He left the hospital tent in that case. So the big panels kind of jump out and grab you and ground you in the story. Like, I think I saw in here, there's the one with the loud tent. I'm looking for a big panel. There's the one where they're digging the graves. Oh, there's the one where Newton goes home. So those big panels grab you and help tell the story. And this one, I imagine, as you flip through, you'll see a bunch of panels on some pages, and then you might see the rebel army is upon us, and then you'll turn the page and you'll just see cows running every which way. And I kind of like that these big pages, big panels will tell the story on their own as you flip quickly through the book. We'll make the ground a little dirty and textured down here, the trench bottom. I widened this trench from how it looks in that photograph, but I needed to do that. I didn't have the panels to sort of explain where everything was in this scene. So I knew it would have to come out in this picture here in this big panel. All right, this is looking mostly together. Last step. We can put this down, right? Last step is I'll go through here, last drawing on the paper step. I'll go through here and erase all my pencil lines, clean it all up. Then I'll scan it in. And we'll see, maybe I always say, maybe I'll come back later. Once I've scanned it in, why don't I'll either post it to the Patreon or I'll come back on and do a live processing of it, and we'll see how it looks with the black added in. I hope this will look really striking with the black around the perimeter here in the corners, and then this big white cloud and cows jumping out of it, all confusion. And sort of this ordered sleeping row on either side here, chaos coming at it. I think that'll be nice ringed in black. It'll really change how the page looks. I might bring some black in here, but I might not. It's possible, I keep my options open. It's possible this will be black down here with white writing, but I'll make that decision when I see it scanned into the computer. Those are just options right now. Did you see that? I missed a line there. Let's go back in. There's always something you're missing when you ink quickly, or when you're talking as you ink. That's my problem. Okay, I'll clean this all up, scan it in, post the results later. If you want to see the results, head on over to merrickbennett.com. Has all my program information. If you become a patron on the Patreon, you get invites, you get links, and you get the you'll get to see the printables of this as I put the project together. And actually, the other two are out there, the tables of contents, and you can see how all these pages were drawn and the kinds of work that goes into the different sections of the book, and the different stories and characters. And you can also, if you join the Patreon now, you can help me make Volume 3, because that's what we're doing this year. That's one of our goals this fall. Thanks, folks. Oh, you know what? Let's do one more thing before we go. I have been keeping this week, I'm keeping a pages chart. And this is where, except where's my red pen? This is where I show how many pages I drew in a day. So today is the 18th. And I'll go up here, and we were at 19 pages, but we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up because I completed 5 different pages today. I have a bunch of pages going on at once. That's a big jump. Gets me up to my 2-page per day goal. If tomorrow I do 2 more pages, I'll stay on that goal. If I do 3, I'll get above it. So that's what I'm aiming for. And I wouldn't have gotten all those pages done if I hadn't started tracking my progress here. This is for September 18th. So we have it. There it is. Keeping track day to day. I can see which were my most productive days there. Really helpful. Nice little trick I learned from Alec Longstreth. All right. Thanks for joining us, folks. I should take one last look to see if we have any comments. Hey, David. David asks, a couple minutes ago, how do you draw the white on the black? Good question, David. That's something I've shown in other live draws. I'll try to post a link to that, but I'll also, if I get to scan this in, I will show you how I do it. It's really easy on the computer, and it's a really nice trick for making really striking pages. I used to get out my marker and laboriously color in all those sections. But honestly, if I'm doing a 500-page graphic novel in under 2 years, I got to use every shortcut I can. So I do that now. I will show that either on a past live draw and or a future live draw. Good question. And Donna asks, the graph is a cool idea for tracking. Oh, thanks, Donna. I'll post a link to my friend Alec Longstreth. He turned me on to that. And when I keep it, yeah, you can see at the beginning of the month, I wasn't keeping this record and I didn't get a lot of pages done. But the moment I started keeping it day to day, boom, I started getting more pages done, right? So that tells me it's working. And, you know, sometimes I go back and I redraw one of those pages, but it's still pages done and it keeps me moving. All right. Thanks, folks. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll draw together soon. See you over on the Patreon. I'll post the results over there. Thanks for joining, everybody. Good night.